Today, finally, is the long-awaited interview between me, Raven Belasco, and Montrez, the awesome author of a number of books, including Errant.
Hello, everyone.
um, might not have been long awaited by anyone else, but it was long awaited by me.
And me.
Yeah. Um, so I'm just gonna jump right in because I'm so excited. Um, the biggest thing to hit me when I started actually listening to, and I'm so glad you have it on such a great audiobook, um, to Errant, was you and I have that found family thing. Like, that's what our books are about, like, all the way from beginning to end. Um, I was actually struck the whole time about how many correspondences that we have as writers, even though we had no idea that each other existed until recently.
Right.
Um, but yeah, let's talk about found family because that's a big one.
Yeah, found family. I love found family. So first off, I think it's important to establish, because I think most people know what found family is, but for those who don't, it's that, those elements where you get to kind of pick your family, right? We're all born into a family. We don't really get a choice there, but having people that you can connect with outside. Now, if you have a great family, that's great. But like when you add that found family, which you're going to see both elements in my books. There's family dynamics, and then there's the found family. Those are the people that you choose and the people that choose you. And honestly, I think it's another level of friendship because it goes beyond that. You have friends, you have associates, and then you have those friends that they basically become part of your family. I don't know, if you have those friends where they're no longer friends, they're like sisters or twins, or you know what I mean. And like when you have kids, your kids like are cousins now. You're all part of like that family. And so I think there's something beautiful in that, in writing about people who you can connect with that are more than just associates. You go through these experiences, these unique experiences that kind of bond you in like a platonic, familial way. And I think it's just beautiful to see. And honestly, I kind of like it even more than romance. I love romance, but there's just something about found family that it hits you on another level. What do you
100%, 100% the same. I learned about found family fresh out of college.
think?
I was with a woman named Michelle for 10 years. And in the beginning, my family, well, my mom was absolutely against it, and I didn't come out to my dad for a very long time. So I just ran off to San Francisco with her, and it was all found family. And I'd never thought of that concept. Like, I mean, I guess maybe I had in a way because I'd read the books of Heinlein, and those are very found family. Uh, like, there's one of his books that isn't about that. But so I'd always had this goal of like, pulling together a family, of loved, beloved people that, shared, if not spaces, then a lot of, our lives. And so I had like, I didn't have the words for it, but I knew I wanted people that I found and I loved around me. And then when I got out there, it was a bunch of people who had been kicked out of their families and were making families for themselves. So that
Mhm.
played a huge impact in my life. And I don't think like I'd have to write some really weird books for that not to be a factor in future stories that I write, to a
Definitely.
greater or lesser extent.
Yeah, found family is huge.
Yeah. But it was wonderful, just jumping into your book and be like, oh, okay. The arms of the found family are circling around now. Okay.
Thank you
um,
so much for checking out my work too. Glad you enjoyed the audiobook.
I really did. I really did. But I mean, you know, I don't know, with that cover, how could I not? I mean, it is an
Thank
amazing cover. Like, that's I think covers are actually really important. You know, there's that stupid saying, never judge a book by its cover, but like everybody is like, do I want to read this book? Let's look at the cover. You know?
It's an important factor.
Yeah, so that's just a just gorgeous kick-ass cover. Um, um, and actually, before I move on to the next thing, thank you for finding, was it Blood Triad that you?
Yes, and
Yeah.
I saw you have it on audio too, so I'm probably gonna lately I've just been loving the audiobooks. I just fly through them when I read through with the audiobooks. I've got three littles under 10, and so I don't do a lot of print anymore because
Mhm.
I don't want to have a reason to be sad if they rip them or spill.
Yeah.
So I mostly do ebooks and audiobooks. So I was happy to see that that's a audiobook as well. But yeah, like I love how your stories, you have like all the different lore and the how the characters connect. So I'm really excited. I peeked at some of the pages on my ebook, and now that I know you have it on audio, I'll probably have words for you like later this week. I fly through those. I fly through the audiobooks. I absolutely love them. You know, because with audiobooks, it creates like a whole new, like you almost, when you have a good audiobook, you don't need, it almost feels like TV, you know, like you're just totally immersed in the story. So I've just really been enjoying reading that way.
Oh well, this then yeah, there's a real treat ahead for you because I got three amazing narrators doing each of the novellas.
It's a multi. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're all like top of the line, like I don't even know how I got so lucky to work with them kind of level. And yeah, I can't tell you which is my favorite because it's whichever one I'm listening to at the moment. I'm just like, no, this is the best one. And then we get to the I'm oh no, this is the best one. It's
And
like,
there's something about that, being able to distinctly voice, you know, have a, because the narrators are great, but they have to work with what they're given. And so when you give them really good story, you know, and with multi POV, sometimes it's so hard.
yeah.
And so because usually as a reader you connect with one more than the other, but when you have like multi POV that you can connect with throughout and you don't want to just like skip to one of the characters, that's amazing. And then on top of that, having like people who can distinctly voice those things and make the story flow, it's just chef's kiss. It's amazing, so I'm excited.
Yeah. I had such distinct stories, you know, there was such different times and places, and it was just, you know, it was like, you know, let's act. And the so what happened with Blood Triad was there was these side characters who were like, we ain't side characters. Like, you know, make us the main character and do it now. They were a little ruder than that actually. But they don't mince their words. But so I was like, okay. I mean, you know, they're in charge. Like my characters are completely in charge of the situation by now. So I was so okay. They got their stories. Just the order of which I did like some fan polls, like who do you want the story from first? And Zoraida won for the first, so she got, you know, out the gate. But then caught up with two others that were not just my favorites, but other people's favorites too. And so yeah, but yeah, because they were set so differently, I was like, I don't want to put like one like narrator trying to do all this, you know. Let's just find the perfect narrator for each story. And yeah, it was, as I said, really, really lucky. It's a really hard part of the job of being an author is birthing those audiobooks and getting them out there. Like,
Yes,
yeah,
it's really
nobody
intense.
prepared us.
Yeah, it's really a whole nother level of production. Like it is intimidating. So my hat goes off to anybody who, first of all, like who creates a book to put it out there, because that's no joke. And then to go like to the next level, because it's a totally different experience. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Now I've worked with Jessie Lou Darrow. She is amazing. She voiced all of the different parts for me. Um, she's a pro, but
She has great range.
she really does. So I really left off with that. But like for the people, there's another author that I think you'll enjoy. Her name is DM Lurie.
Hmm.
She's fantastic. She has a fantastic audiobook. And if you like a discovery of witches, it kind of gives you that feel. Like when I read it, I was blown away. It touches on some mental health things. She has like a diverse cast, and just very good writing. It has vampires and witches and werewolves and all kinds of stuff. So just putting that out there. That's one of my favorite audiobooks. And
I'll message you after this for the reminder. All right. Well, now that we've like had a moment of just like self-praise, they're not self-praise. I'm praising you, you're praising me, the mutual fan society. I want to get into the next thing that came up for me as I was listening, which was I know that we are both dealing with chronic illness stuff.
Mhm.
And I was like, how odd is it that two people dealing with chronic illness in real life have super powered, uh, you know, especially in like, you haven't, I don't think you've done Blood Ex Libris yet, but that one is all about a normal human, interacting with the Amber, the vampires, and
Mhm.
um, building in power. And it's just as in Errant, where she has those powers in her, but they have to get unlocked, and then she has to work on them and train. Um, that really was like, okay, like there's no doubt that I think we are probably wanting some of those superpowers for ourselves.
Yeah, I think for me, oh man, so I've been writing for a while. And for me, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and what they thought was fibromyalgia, but it's really just strong rheumatoid arthritis.
Oh,
I was diagnosed with that in like 2018, 2019, about 2 years before I came out with my book in 2020. And it was just really disheartening because I think in a future book, one of the lines that really kind of shows how I'm feeling about this, that best describes my thoughts about being chronically, having chronic conditions and going through this. There's a line in one of my books where my main character, she's actually going to be chronically ill. But she's very bright and she has so much potential. And she says, if my body was as strong and as sharp as my mind, what a force of nature I would be. And so I think because when this initially happened, I had a really terrible experience with the doctor and the office that diagnosed me. First of all, they blindsided me with it. The lady came in and she said, congratulations, you have rheumatoid arthritis, like it was my birthday or something. And then she was like, yeah, we're just going to pick your choice of what you want to go on. Like it was, so it was just a really terrible experience.
yeah,
Time
that's
period
so
in my life is kind
callous.
of a black hole. But I remember her telling me that I needed to mourn the life that I'd had.
Oh
Um,
my God.
yeah. So from congratulations to mourning. And I remember leaving being extremely angry,
Hmm.
um, and thinking that, it's not the end of my life. I'm still breathing. You're telling me this isn't a terminal, disease. So I'm not dying from this. So I'm going to
Right.
find a way to live with it. And so when I was writing Errant, um, like autoimmune, my autoimmune condition was actually kind of a way that helped me to define their ability.
Hmm.
Because for anyone who knows, when you have an autoimmune condition, a lot of times, especially now, they have more research coming out. But when I was diagnosed, they said they really don't know how you could get it or where it came from. It's just basically your body fighting itself, right?
Hmm.
So, if you've read Errant, she goes through a lot of Savannah, the main character, goes through a lot of life-changing experiences, from the death of her father, a big move, her mom getting into a whole new relationship while she's still very deep in the middle of grief. And so all these things, all these stress factors just kind of help this ability to blossom. And when I was trying to figure out how to develop that and make it make sense for my story, I made it kind of like an autoimmune type of situation, because it's basically an overactive adrenaline rush.
Right.
Some where her body is trying to protect itself, and it was coupled with some of the stories. I'm sure everyone's heard stories where about the mom who lifted the car on her, to
Yep.
save the child who was pinned underneath. So it fascinated me that, and then when you look at the things that we're able to achieve, how we can push our bodies to these almost super, to these super dynamic, to do these super dynamic things when we're everyday people. And so, interweaved with my love of just like looking at the extraordinary things that everyday people do, with kind of like me grappling with this kind of diagnosis, I decided to change my narrative, create somebody who could, overcome all the craziness that's coming at them. And, in spite of the challenges, being able to accomplish amazing things.
That actually leads directly to one of the other things that I was going to bring up, which is I love that there is no like chosen one narrative, and neither of us have that, which in YA and fantasy are so prevalent. I mean, just every hero has this prophecy that foretold them, or, like
Right.
dragons that have been waiting for them to be born, or, something. And, neither of us have that. We just have protagonists who are just chugging along. Like, I'm not going to stop. And that's one of their superpowers, is just a
Right.
complete unwillingness to just roll over and die. Like, it's just,
Right.
no, well, this sucks and I'm just going to push through this.
Exactly.
So yeah, it was such a relief. I was like, there's no chosen one thing going on here. Like, this is just a gal, reaching both to womanhood and superpoweredness at the same time, which, oh my God, you put your characters through some shit, okay? I can't say, I mean, game recognized game. I do too. I've actually had fans message me and yell at me um, when they didn't like what I'd done to characters in books. But yeah, so that was brilliant.
Thank you.
Any thoughts on the not chosen one? Like, was there a reason
Oh.
why you rejected that as an idea?
So I'm my stories are very character driven. So I try to be really genuine in telling their story. And I think you mentioned it earlier, how like our characters are kind of in control. And
Mm-hmm.
I find that when I just, you kind of know your end destination for the book, but how you get there, I let the character take the wheel. And I think for Savannah's character, she was so used to living life on the sidelines that I'm like, yeah, she's not a chosen one. She's more of like an accidental hero,
I like that.
or the underdog. It's kind of like a David versus Goliath thing where, and I think what I wanted to do with this is the things that we typically think are make us weak actually give us a different advantage.
Mm,
So you would think that by being an outsider or being awkward in your own skin, that's a disadvantage, right? But a lot of people who are outsiders, they are very observant and they see things from a different lens that other people can't. A lot of people who are awkward, or who are kind of like misfits, maybe it's because they're not made to fit in. They are made to like be a solution or to be leaders. And I think that gives people a certain strength. And so what I really wanted to do with Errant was show that, a different type of strength. We're so used to, like you said, the chosen one, the one who has all the snark and things like that. It's always the loud ones or the ones who are vocal, who are more heroic. But I wanted to show a different type of strength. Like there's strength in enduring, there's strength in being able to like adjust and to grow and to learn or to push through what you think is a weakness. Because even her anxiety that she experiences actually becomes something that she can will to fuse her power.
All perfectly valid anxiety. She absolutely had every reason to be having all those anxieties.
Right. Great. Yeah. So how was that for you? Like, did your chronic condition, did that inspire like your work, or how did you like take inspiration from your experiences?
Well, so when I came to like, kind of the Build-A-Bear workshop for the vampires, because
Mhm.
there was a wonderful interview I heard a while ago, where there was another vampire author, and he was saying how when you write vampires, you get to like go into the playground of like all vampire myth and choose like, I'll have that and I'll have that. Oh, I don't want that, and so like for me, it was like the Build-A-Bear workshop. And so, but everything I wanted to make real biological sense. So that was how I was sort of choosing things from myth. But I didn't want the vampires not to be able to go out in sunlight. And so what they experience is basically like absolutely debilitating migraines instead. Which is, I mean, if you have a bad migraine, you kind of wish you've been turned to ash, like you're like, no, 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 I'm okay. We can just stop it now. Like, so, at the time I was writing this, I was like, how will anyone not see that this is me writing about chronic illness? And I'm not sure anyone has, like, really, no one's ever brought it up. So sometimes when you're writing, you're like, oh my God, this is so obvious. And then no one ever catches on. But yeah, so yeah, anytime that these Ammer are walking around during daylight, they just are so grumpy because they feel like shit,
But I love that. I love that you said it's like migraines, and that makes sense. It's like totally clicking, because when you have those migraines, like you have sensitivity to light, you don't want to hear anything, you just want to be still. And yeah,
in the dark.
that's genius.
Thank you. But Jean, it was well, just like Savannah working with her issues, I was taking my issues and I was like, how are we going to make this useful to me, as an author? So yeah, so I and then you haven't really met Noosh very well yet, or gone through all that stuff with Noosh yet, but as you go through with her, you're now, you're gonna be like, oh, okay, like, just so she's taken Ammer blood 3 times, which makes her a half Ammer, a living vampire. In Romanian, that's Strigoi Viu. So there's like a mythological basis. And so for her, that ends up sucking some, like it does give her some good stuff. Like it corrects her vision to 2020. Not so bad. Gives her some other kind of mini superpowers, but she's not all the way there yet. She has to die to access them. So she's stuck neither fish nor fowl, and she's going to spend a fair bit of the first 3 books bitching and moaning about that and not enjoying it one bit. And so in a way that kind of puts her in this kind of like, it's different than a chronic illness, but it's equally uncomfortable.
Right.
And then also she's in this place where she's not fully, juiced up in this world of everyone else who is.
Right.
Most of the Emmer don't let their Emmernoff, their half vampire children, out into the Emmer world, because they're not, they're just going to require a lot of protecting, and they're not, strong enough. So she's running around just trying to stay alive, but everyone else around her has all of the superpowers and none of the worries. So I mean, if that's not like a chronically ill person in a world full of healthy people, what is?
Yes, I understand that. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I love that though. I love the way that you've built that and how it makes sense for that. Would you compare if you were to pair your vampires with a show, like what show do you think best kind of like summarizes the feel of your books?
Um, well, you brought up Discovery of Witches, and those vampires don't mind sunlight, so that's a big connection. And also, they can drink blood without killing the victim, and that was important to me because it doesn't make sense. For me, vampires don't really make sense in this world if every time you drink, you have to leave a corpse behind you.
Right.
That's not sustainable. It's not, ecologically sound practices. Like the human world is going to notice you guys real fast. So that was one of the kind of things that was important to me. So there are some overlaps with the Amber and the vampires of Discovery of Witches. Also, I'm not sure I overlap with many of the vampire series that have become shows. Um, but I did liberally borrow quite a lot of ideas from other authors. Jonathan Nassau had the idea of blood making vampires like a drug, being like a drug for vampires, and
Mhm.
um, and I was like, yeah, I'll take that, thank you. Uh, um, and uh, wanting to tie history, like seeing vampires as the ultimate best way to tell historical stories, definitely came from Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough, who just she did it slightly different than me. She just wrote like something like 25 or more books about in this series, and
Wow.
her main character just goes through the age, like it just tells his story throughout the ages of humanity. And I'm not sure I've got the patience to pull that one off. But just there's no period in history that I cannot go play in with my Amber. And I just want to do that, man. Like I just I just want to set the story, figure out which Amber come from which time, tell their origin story or some interesting story from their life, and just play in that historical sandbox for a while, and then you know explore that, and then move on to the next bit of history. And you know the great thing is I keep having to research the history for all of these, so I'm actually like come in like pretty full of history. uh, so little accidental like bonus there.
Yeah, that's awesome because history is so like so vast and there's so many amazing things that you can discover in that. So
Yeah,
that's an amazing sandbox to play in.
I don't even have to like create bad guys now. They're all in history for me, and I mean it's insane. Like they're worse than I could have come up with. So they're all just like out there waiting, and I'm like, oh, you'll do. Like you're bad enough. In fact, I might have to tamp you down a little.
Right.
But actually, that reminds me that you have the Houdini connection in Errant, and if you haven't done more of that, like I am putting in my request, like I want to hear about how he was an Errant. Like,
So it just like that just hit me like because I started thinking and I'm like, man, this is kind of like a mindset. It's almost like its own culture and community. And I love how different shows or whatever you watch and you're like, oh, he was a mutant or he was a this.
yeah,
And so like when I really started looking up things on Houdini, because I wanted that to be, there's a character in there, his name is Max, and he has like this vast library. Um, and his character is really really messy and interesting and
mm-hmm.
passionate about different things. I really enjoyed writing him, but I wanted to the books that we read kind of fuel the things. Words are powerful, and so I'm like, what would be on his bookshelf? What would he have
It was
articles
a
on?
fascinating list.
And so I'm like, he's running this underground refuge of errands, and they have a whole system, so how is he doing that? What is he reading? And so he had articles on Houdini. He had, I think, some things by Machiavelli and all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that fits.
Yeah.
Because he's in charge. It's a lot. He's very ambitious, but he's also got a lot of anger, a lot of things that he wants to do. He doesn't just want to kind of like, he's nobody's victim.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did want to include that. And then after I did it, I'm like, man, I wonder who else might be like linked to this community that we might not know. And I wanted everyday people to feel like maybe I'm an errant too,
Mm-hmm.
because literally people are out here doing errant type of things all the time.
Just don't run into a train, though. Like,
right? Yeah, don't do that one. Don't do that. Like, I was watching the Olympics. When you see how fast they run, it almost doesn't look normal.
Yeah.
It's so fast. It's like Superman fast. It's like, how are you doing this?
And then if I was out there, I'd be like they're gone.
I mean, it's just so fascinating, the extraordinary things that we can do, just like being everyday people. And that's kind of what I wanted to like get at, like these people that have these amazing talents. Maybe they were errants.
Well, if you ever do like a little side series of like historical figures who were errant, I am so in like for reading those. Like, just keep me in mind. Little fan request.
No, you're onto something. I might, because even with the bad guys in the story, the Immortals, they have historical elements to them. They throughout, so that could easily be done, and that might actually be a fun little side project.
No, I'm selfishly doing it for me. I want to read it. Right. They're actually, yes. So that actually, you're amazing because you keep getting things all set up for me to ask the next question. So thank you. In both Blood Ex Libris and in Errant, we've got main characters who get pissed off that they are not there's a t-shirt I saw once that said self-rescuing princess, and I just love that. And I was, as I was reading, I was like, oh my god, like Noosh has almost word for word in one place like complaint, like, here I am having to be rescued again and I am mad about this, and they feel bad that they are not like totally taking care of business. Like, and it's ridiculous too, because they're like, how long have they been in these new worlds? But they're like, oh no, I should already be like, saving my own ass. But they're mad every time someone has to come rescue them. And I thought that was a fascinating commonality, was just these female characters who are just so wanting to just not need help, right. Yeah, that really made me feel connected to you as an author too. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. Like, we put our female main characters through a lot, and now what they end up just being mad about is like someone having to come and help them when they're not fully strengthed up.
Right. And I thought that was important to make it that way, because so many times you see these movies and these books where like people are just automatically getting it after one training.
Yeah.
And
yes,
for life, So I wanted to show a realistic struggle. Like, baby girl, you're dropped in the middle of this epic battle. You just found out you have powers. You still have life issues to deal with. Like, I also wanted it to be important that she's still connected to her family. Her mother is very much actively looking for her. And all these things are going on. So she had a lot going on. But I think one of the things that I get the most, some of the most comments on, is the fact that she gets beat up.
Yeah.
By a very much younger character.
That I was not expecting that. I was just like, oh, so this is happening now. Okay.
I was not expecting that either. Chloe came out of nowhere. But I wanted to show Because I think, again, there's different types of strengths. And no, you are not going to be the strongest person, the strongest errant in the room if you look at, just being able to use your abilities. That's somebody else's ability. But she provides a different type of strength that is very much needed. And so I wanted to show that, like, not all strength comes in one way. There's different types of strengths. And her strength is that she's able to see things from a different angle and pull people together. And she has to realize that that's a strength. She's over here trying to prove herself to everybody. And it's like, you're already doing more than what you thought. You're uniting these two fractured pieces of, community to like really handle who the real bad guy is. And that in itself is not an easy task. You're dealing with stubborn people who have like all this history that you know nothing about. So you've got a fresh set of eyes. So that was really important to show her actually struggle. And, after the struggle, still not being the best or the brightest, or, you know what I mean? But like realistically, you do see improvement. Little by little, she gets more assertive, she gets more confident. And I just wanted that to be like a realistic thing for people like me who, if I was thrown in that situation, I'd probably eventually fight, but I'd cry while I'm fighting. You know what I mean? Not everybody is going to have the witty banter or is going to like exude the same strength in the same way. And so that was important for me to show.
When you bring up witty banter, that's actually been a weird thing in my books. I wanted to have a main character. So I sort of Mary Sued this part. She has the witty banter. I wished I had the witty banter. But I have it start with her having this internal dialogue where she's always actually taking herself down. Like, so when you meet her, she's, really self-deprecating inside her own head. And a lot of people got turned off who read it, or not a lot, but a fair number of people who go review things on Goodreads got turned off by that inner dialogue. And it's like, oh, just hold on a second. This is going to become something else. Just give it a chance. And then she turns what she had been turning on to herself outward as circumstances get more insane. And so what had been her being like, oh God, you're so stupid, I can't believe you're doing this, turned into like, oh my God, this bad guy is so annoying. He's just been monologuing for so long. Like, can he shut up?
But see, that's beautiful because like you show the journey to that. She wasn't just like out like, and there's nothing wrong with the witty banner. I love it. But for people like me who don't have the witty banner, who are more self-deprecating, I love that you show that transition.
I mean, she isn't me. Like, I wrote some very distinct differences to kind of pry us apart. But yeah, it was like, oh man, I want to experiencing her having the right thing to say in the right moment. Like, that's the dream. So as I write other characters, they're able to be like more awkward or other things like that. But yeah, Noosh got to have its own superpower of the witty banter. And I love writing those scenes so much. Like, as long as it's her talking, like it just flies out the keyboard, if it's me out there in the world, an hour later, I'm like, oh, I should have said, but in the moment when Noosh is doing something, woof, right out. So yeah, I've loved living that through her.
Yeah, there's nothing like iconic dialogue.
Yeah.
But I love how you incorporate that, how it's, it's not just like she's always on, you know what I mean? It's, you flow into that, there's growth.
It's really hard as a writer these days to do growth. Because as I spent all the years trying to get the book published before I decided to become an indie publisher, I so much of the rejection I got was, this doesn't like start with a bang. That's why I went back and put in a prologue, because I was like, I'm so about growth. The whole series is like, I like to call it personal growth or die. And uh so, you know, she starts out as like a librarian, you know, in middle America, you know, hasn't had a date in so long, you know, just like lives for like her books and her, you know, and her book club and doing the children's reading hour and, you know, and that's it. And she had wanted so much more when she was in college. Like she trained to be an archivist and, you know, and instead she's just having this little life. And it can't be that exciting. The writing can't be that exciting when you're on the same level, that level with your character. And it's just like, you know, if you people want personal growth, like you're gonna have to go through some less thrilling moments of this character's life so that we can do the build up.
Right.
But yeah, then you slap the prologue, you know, the immediate race, like, you know, fight, fight, boom, you know, onto the prologue, into the beginning, and then we take it back. But yeah, I had so many people just be like, oh, well, this is a slow beginning. And it's like, because she's in a slow play.
Right.
And it's gonna get to the point where we've got sword fighting and explosions and the action is like going so fast you can barely keep up, but we gotta get there. Like, let us get there.
Get there. And that's interesting that you say that because when I was writing Errant, the first part feels contemporary to me because I really wanted you to see what her life looked like. Like she's literally just this average kind of mediocre feeling person that's going through a hard time. And you know, the other stuff will come, but like even in that, because her family is so ingrained in the experience, they all kind of get to experience that like fantastical element with her. Like I wanted it to be believable because if you you know, with like YA, the parent is either always dead or they're missing or they're just totally absent.
Yep.
I
Yep.
wanted her family. And somebody even brought that up, like even her family, going back to the found family, is still kind of like a found family because she's got this stepdad that really cares about her. And I didn't really intentionally, you know, I wanted him to be an okay guy, but I didn't really see how valuable that was until somebody pointed it out, like, hey, you've got like a mixed family dynamic here, and I love it. But I say all that to say, like, I'm losing my train of thought here. Totally.
Uh, the found
Oh,
family
this
and
world.
believability of the building.
Yeah. So, you know, I wanted to show because for me too, like, there's a lot of stake in the game for her because she's not just like this castaway. She still has family that cares for her, but now she's got this found family. So I wanted to get people to, I wanted them to be able to connect with her on like, and to see themselves in her before we got to like all the build up. So to your point, like it's so important to me to incorporate those slower moments per se, so you can work up to that and really care about the character.
Yeah, well, I mean, the publishing world's crazy, so you know, we're doing the right thing. Readers do actually want to see growth. You know, and you know, it's just about figuring out the way of writing it that keeps people engaged.
Right.
All right. Oh, there was another connection. Uh, in chapter 29, when Savannah was asked to stay with what initially was seemed like the enemy, but turns out to be the other group that she's, you know, bringing together. There was just this moment from Blood Ex Libris where Noosh is like, oh, can you stay with the enemy? Because we can't rescue you right now because of X, Y, and Z. Um,
Right.
you know, and the emotions that they both had of like, are you seriously like gonna leave me here right now? I was just like, oh my God, did we just write like the same story from different perspectives? Like
Yep.
it was incredible. But I don't think I've read anyone else kind of do that, where the rescuer shows up, like hangs out, has a little conversation, and then just, you know, just goes away. Like, yeah, I'm okay, leaving you with the bad guys. Bye bye. Like,
Yeah, and I think it was important because I wanted to show that no one perspective has all the answers. Honestly, we're all unreliable narrators because we don't have all the facts. And so she had this very unique kind of position.
Mhm.
And they didn't automatically intend for that. They went there with the intent to rescue her, but then when they're seeing like, hey, you're actually, oh, he likes you.
Yeah.
Well, stay there and figure out what he's doing. He's got you on the inside. Get us all the information we need. And it's funny because she thinks she's spying, and he already knows. Like he's
Yeah.
got a whole bat cave with like all the stuff. So yeah.
My character at that point is at that place is a little less three-dimensional as Max, and is just really absolutely crazy. So he I don't like there are people around who are suspecting Noosh, but
Mhm.
he's just like, oh yeah, she's all in on our side now, and he's just like, okay, just got to play this one real carefully. And yours actually turns out to be much more useful. It just I just use it to send the story in a certain direction where you actually build the having those two groups coming together and really cementing Savannah's role there. So it's not exactly the same story, but I loved all the commonalities that I found that I wasn't even looking for when I started. I was just like, oh, I'm just going to enjoy the story, the headphones on. And then I was like, wait a second, wait a second.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for that. Like,
I'm glad you enjoyed. Yeah, that was definitely a journey. That book was definitely a journey.
yeah, you take us on the journey. Like we go on the journey with Savannah. And that's really what I try to do with Noosh as well, is she's got a real serious journey to go on. And it's not always easy on her. It's mostly not easy on her. And but that's what I really want, is for the reader to kind of get swept along, um, just like okay, I'm really connected to what's happening, you know. Um, that's for me as a writer, that's just so important. Is just, I mean, some readers are never going to like you, but the ones who are, I want them to just be fully pulled along. So,
Great. And I think that's important too as writers, that we have to understand that not every book is going to be everyone's cup of tea. I mean, as somebody who loves to read too, there's books that I don't always care for. So the way I always compare it is like to, you have the candy aisle with all the snacks. There's all kinds of chocolate, you
yeah,
know, and that doesn't impact, just because somebody likes a Reese cup doesn't mean that that's going to put Snickers out of business. And sometimes you want it all. So
yeah.
we all write our own flavors, and just trying to find the people who enjoy it.
I don't want to read about vampires that are just sexy, and aren't monsters, because
Mhm.
they're monsters. you know and they are the sexy monsters for sure. They have always been. But if you take away the monsters part, it's not that interesting anymore. So I really love getting down and playing in the dark, with uh you know just a little reminder as you're reading, oh yeah, these are monsters, you know like even my good guys are quite morally gray.
And that's the fun, exploring those characters that can kind of, I think the good and bad is kind of like a sliding, like a little meter. Like sometimes you're more good than others. We all have that villain and hero potential. It just matters. It's kind of dependent on the circumstance and the perspective. So it's always
Yes.
fun to navigate the morally gray characters and to be surprised by them.
one day I just want to do a project where I just write the thing from like, like have a book where you just like halfway through it flips and you have to flip it upside down and just have the two perspectives and like have like the good guy on one side and then the bad guy who is the good guy of his own story and just have,
Mhm.
and just have it be really emotionally conflicting for people.
Do it, do it, do it. I would read that, do it.
All right, I will put it on the list, which is long of all the stories I want to read.
Oh, so many. That's a good
Yeah.
problem to have, though.
It is a good problem to have, yeah. I don't think you and I are running out of visions and inspiration anytime soon. um, this has been such a pleasure. Um,
Yes. I'm
anytime you
ex
want to chat about stuff. Like,
So just a little exclusive. Next month or for October, we're getting ready to I do a book club and fangs and fandoms is the theme.
ooh,
So that's kind of why I asked you what show you would compare yours to. So I want to add that to our list of books to like feature and to choose from. So I'm excited. Did you watch the new Interview with the Vampire?
yes, and oh God, it's yeah, it's perfect. Like
No. Yeah.
I just love them. Um, like honestly, I think they're even better than the original books. Um, I love them that much. But yeah, if I'll send you a list of films over too. Only Lovers Left Alive is my favorite vampire film.
Ooh, and I've heard of that one, but I don't think I've never seen that one.
Oh,
So
it is so gorgeous and also a really interesting and unique look at vampires with a little comedic. Like it's like beautiful and dramatic, and then there's just some like ridiculous comedy in there too. So it is yeah. I don't. That is my absolute favorite.
that's awesome. I'll have to check that one out. But yeah, so
It
I
will
love
it will be a good 2 hours of your life.
that's awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I know like we it took us a minute to get to this point where we